Hello, everyone. For this review, I'm going to be doing the 1988 film 976 Evil. Now, this film's claim to fame is being directed by Robert Englund, who obviously needs no introduction. It also stars Stephen Geoffreys, who you'll recognize from Fright Night, Leslie Dean, Freddy's Dead the Final Nightmare, and Patrick O'Brien, who never really went on to do anything besides this film and the sequel. Now, before I get started on the review, this film does bring back a little bit of sentimental value to me. One of them films I used to watch on the late night USA all night horror marathons. I remember bits and pieces of this movie, even though I haven't seen it in well over 20 years. So it did leave a lasting impression on me in that regard, but I remember it being a little bit better than it actually is. And let's face it, you can go back and pick apart any 30-year-old film and find things that are dated and just things that don't add up. But this film just feels a little more dated than most from the time. I mean, The Blob came out in 1988. Halloween 4 came out in 1988. This just feels much more dated than those films. And I believe that's because of the premise of the film has to deal with calling in, hotlines, sex talk lines, calling get your horoscope. Just it shows rotary phones, phone booths, a store where they sell phones, just things that just seem so old. I mean, I watch films sometimes from the early 2000s, mid 2000s, where even late 90s, where they're talking about internet and chat rooms, and those films feel ancient. So this just feels just so old. It's not a terrible film, and I would recommend it for any horror fan who hasn't seen it, just because it was directed by Robert Englund. So you almost feel like you have to check it out at some point, just out of respect for him. And I've definitely seen worse. So it's not going to be the worst film you've ever seen. It'll keep your attention, but it's certainly not going to wow you. So if you haven't seen it, I would recommend check it out. But this review will contain spoilers. So Patrick O'Brien, Stephen Joffreys, Spike, and Hoax are cousins. Hoax's mom, she's a big religious nut. He plays his usual geeky self. Even more, I would say even more geeky and reserved, almost like semi-autistic compared to his Fright Night role where he was, similar characters, but he's even a little bit more dorky in this at first. Patrick O'Brien, he plays kind of the Kevin Dillon, poor man's Kevin Dillon from The Blob, the typical 80s badass, leather jacket, motorcycle. I mean, he wasn't terrible, but I can see why his career never really blossomed after this. Just he played the part of a hood decently, but like I said, poor man's compared to some other actors of the era. So the mom is really religious. She's really a nut. She's making life hard on him. Apparently, the film lets on that his mom died, left him money, but she's using his money for whatever. He finds this card that says call and get your horoscope or whatever. 976 evil. He calls the number, tells him basically go steal the money. So he goes, he steals the money, and that kind of kicks off the chain of events that is the film. He gets the money. There's some bullies at the school that are picking on Stephen Joffrey's hoax, giving him a hard time. Patrick O'Brien's character Spike is also indebted to these bullies from losing money playing poker. So you see these bullies a lot throughout the film. No one memorable or even really worth mentioning in terms of naming the actor. Just your typical 80s punk bullies. I believe one was named Airhead. Like it was just nothing special about any of these characters. Leslie Dean's character gets introduced. She plays Spike's girlfriend. I believe her name's Susie in the film. She was all right. It was cool seeing her. She's definitely in a different role than she was in Freddy's Dead. She's more of a trampy, punky. I mean, you get to see her with the shirt off and whatnot. Nothing special for sure, but she was okay in the film. She did what they asked her to do. So you basically just see Stephen Joffrey's hoax. Just he's getting bullied. They're sticking his head in the toilet. They're just making his life a living hell. You get to see Patrick O'Brien and Leslie Dean get it on in the scene. Pretty lame. Hoax is looking through a telescope. He's always peeking in the room, and they got this little message system that they send. He's able to like send vacuum messages in a capsule back and forth. So after Patrick O'Brien's character Spike steals the money, things start to go well for him. He calls the hotline again, and it tells him basically steal this pair of gloves. He actually refuses to do it. Then the hotline calls him back. The phone rings. He picks it up, and it tells him, look both ways before you cross the road. And then this Camaro comes out of nowhere with no driver and almost hits him. But this reporter, private investigator, detective runs, jumps across, and saves him. That's the introduction of this character, who really didn't play a big role. I mean, he was constant throughout the film, and he was in the final act, but again, nothing noteworthy here. Some random character that we never got introduced to. She's just walking down the road. The phone rings. They say, we had a deal. She's like, no, no, leave me alone. And he's like, we had a deal. You can't back out. And the window of some phone store explodes and kills her. Not a great kill. Pretty lame, honestly. I mean, it showed some gore when she was on the ground, but in terms of kills, it was like maybe a 1.5 out of 5. Wasn't really anything special or memorable. Let's see. So Stephen Joffrey's he's crushing on Leslie Dean. After they get it on, he goes down into the room. He finds a pair of panties she left, and he's like sniffing them and perving out on those. Then he finds the card, the 976 evil card, and he calls it and gets his horoscope, and it tells him go to the movies and you'll meet the girl of your dreams. So, and that is Leslie Dean. So he goes to the late night show. I almost said Kevin Dillon. Patrick O'Brien's character blows her off. So they end up meeting. They go to a pizza place. They're hanging out. They're having a good time. The bullies come. They embarrass them. And she goes back to, she comes over and then they find the pair of panties in his pocket. And she's like, I thought you were different. Which was a lame scene because, like, why would you think he was different? Like, he's been perving on you since. He caught her. He was looking at her through a telescope and saw her naked and she knew it. But at the same time, like, she's like, I thought you were different. Why? Like, just earlier that day, you caught him looking at you through a telescope through a window from, the house. So I don't see how finding a pair of panties in his pocket was any kind of a step up from that. I mean, I guess it's a little more pervish, but you know what I'm saying? Didn't really make sense there to me, but whatever. So, in the cafe as well, while they're eating the pizza, she sees a spider and she freaks out. And him being his character, he's like, oh, it's just a spider, it's a daddy long legs. It's not really a spider, and he's playing with it, and he goes to put it down. That's when the bullies come in and they squash the spider. But it shows that she's afraid of spiders. So after he gets picked on and humiliated, he goes back to his house. He calls the number again, and the number basically tells him, like, if you want to, have more power, do what I say. So he draws this pentagram on the ground, takes some plants and his spider, because he has a pet spider, puts it in the middle, and remotely, this causes Leslie Dean to get attacked by a bunch of spiders and killed. Not terrible. It looked like they used real spiders in this because I know they didn't have enough CGI to do it at the time. So that was decent. The spiders looked good. It was a genuinely creepy scene if you're afraid of spiders, I suppose. Wasn't too bad. Her death was okay. I mean, it wasn't gory or graphic. When he smashed the spider, she just dropped dead on the floor. Then he goes over and finds out that she really is dead, and that's kind of what leads on that he has the power, or that this number's real and it really gives him this power. So the next day he goes to school like nothing ever happened, and for some reason he tells Spike that I killed your girlfriend. He doesn't report him or anything. It's just, okay, I committed a murder, but whatever. The film really doesn't go anywhere with that. And then Spike just tells him, pushes him down to the ground and starts going off on him. Stephen Joffrey is like, one day I'll be standing up and you'll be on the ground. And he's like, yeah, when hell freezes over. And that was kind of a predictable scene because right there when he says that, the way just the film is going, that there's going to be a scene later on in the film where the roles are reversed. But, whatever, again. 30-year-old movie, I'm not going to be too hard on it. about little things like that. So you get introduced to a principal character who I will say is one bad actress in the movie. Like she only did a couple things, and I can see why. I mean, she sucked, especially in the final act. She was just terrible. Also, some just like a 30-year-old film, but the special effects were bad. It seemed like even by that standard, just that's why I feel like this was a low budget film. I didn't look it up or anything, but you can just tell just the effects were cheap, and yeah, I've just seen better from that time period than what was here for sure. So Stephen Joffrey, he keeps feeding into this power. He fights back against one of the bullies, scratches his face real bad. Then he's starting to become stronger. He's starting to change physically. His face starting to get like veiny and craters, and he's just starting to get darker. And you know, again, Stephen Joffrey is such a twerp. Like his stature, his demeanor, that even when he gets scary, he's still not really that scary. They did a decent job with it, but still, like, there's people that sometimes can go from the nerd role to like the badass or evil role and do it well, but this just wasn't really one of them cases. He's just better stuck in the twerpy role, you know. It's kind of like in Fright Night when he turns into a vampire. He's still a wimpy vampire, you know. So it's kind of similar here. So really, at this point in the film, you're pretty much almost getting to the final act. He comes in. The bullies are sitting in there playing poker. Comes in, two of them take him outside. He comes in with two hearts, and he's like, "Can I enter into the game with two hearts?" And they're like beaten. Looks pretty fake. Not really, you know. I've seen better effects than that. So the main bully, he takes his time, cuts his hand off, ends up killing him in the bathroom. Blood comes out of the toilet. Again, you know, the kills in this really weren't that good. I think they could have did a better job with the kills. I will say I'm a little disappointed in Robert Englund in that regard. Like, I understand he was probably working on a tight budget here, and this was I believe it was his directorial debut. So I'll give him a little bit of a pass, but then again, he could have did better with the kills. I don't feel like they were very inventive or creative. They were pretty run of the mill and nothing really graphic or gory or just interesting at all. And you don't even get to see the main bully get killed. He's just screaming, and then Hoax has a knife, and then it cuts off and just shows some blood running up out of the toilet. Not even like a lot either. Just literally like it's like they just threw a little fake blood in some toilet water, and that was it. Kills one of the other bullies by throwing him on top of a sign. I don't know whatever happened to that girl that was in that scene. There was a girl that was hanging out with the bullies, but I don't believe it ever showed her get killed. At least that wasn't memorable enough that I might have forgot. But I'm pretty sure she just goes off. You know, he must have just left her alone or whatever. So he goes back to his house. Hoax does after he kills the bullies. Ends up killing his mom. His mom comes in and wants to take the strap to him. Ends up killing her with just a swipe to the face. Again, you don't get to see anything. She falls face first onto the couch, so you literally don't get to see anything. Patrick O'Brien's character Spike realizes what's going on and shows up at the house. The private investigator, detective, reporter, and the principal come to the house. And now the house, when they show up, it's frozen inside. Like there's snow everywhere. And his character's in there. They're going around the house. They're investigating the principal. One guy's trying to climb up a window. He gets pushed down. The detective knocked down. The principal, Hoax's character goes back to his normal voice and calls her upstairs. When she gets upstairs, she finds the dead body of the mom. Again, just a, cheap, generic dead body, not anything special. Don't get to see anything there. And then the final act of the film is basically just him chasing them three characters around. There's the scene that earlier in the film you knew was coming where he pushes Kevin Dillon down and he says, "How ironic is it that I pushed you down and I'm standing up and hell is frozen over?" Like I said, you just knew that was coming. Shit, my mic. my computer went to screensaver for a second. Hopefully I didn't mess it up. But yeah, so you got that. Then the end of the film was probably the most disappointing, just because after all that, all three of these characters, the principal, the private investigator, and Spike live, and all he does to beat him is just push him out of a window. Like he's holding him up against the wall, and then he's like, "Hoax, I know you're in there. Like, what about our motorcycle trip across country?" Then it's one of them really generic scenes where, like, "I know you're still in there. If you can hear me, come out. Hoax, I know you're in there. What about our motorcycle trip?" Just, again, nothing original. Very cliche scene. Then, like I said, to kill him, he just pushes him out of a window into a big crack in the ground that leads to hell. And that's it. Then pretty much the credits start to roll. So, I think that was a decent job of summing the film up. And again, it wasn't the most terrible film. I guess I just have maybe a little bit higher expectations since I did remember liking it as a kid. And it is. It's a type of film that like a 9 or 10-year-old would enjoy. Like, and think it was okay. But, just now it's so dated. It's so basic. There's all the kills. You really don't get to see anything on any of the kills, and the acting wasn't terrible, but like the principal in the end, like, wow, that's some bad acting. The effects were bad even for the time. If I had to rate this film, I would go 1.5 to 2 stars out of 5. I think that's fair, and I even think 2 stars might be a 2 stars might be a stretch, but it's somewhere between 1.5 and 2 stars for me. I can't give it 2.5 because it just really wasn't that good. But if you haven't seen it, like I said, check it out because Robert Englund did direct this, and you owe that to him. So that's my review for 976 Evil. I'm going to be doing the sequel. I'm going to watch that now. Don't remember if I've seen the sequel or not, so I had some hopes for it. Again, I had hopes for this as well, so let's hope it's decent. I'm sure it can't be that much worse than this, but we will soon find out. So that's my review. Thanks for watching.